Okay, so now that we have written down our organisms and added in arrows to show relationships and energy flow, what you need to start doing now is adding in the terms, that I'm asking you to add in. So things like producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and decomposers. And so what I did is I just took a different color and I started writing those things in. So I started at the bottom of the food web, and so this was the one I was doing for you guys, but this is the one I did first of all. So, and then I thought, well, I better show people this. So I started with at the bottom where I had my producers. So I've got producers, and then I would add producer to aquatic plants. And again, I assume this because of my prior knowledge of, food chains and, what fish eat and all that good stuff. So this is the one that I was doing for you. So I went ahead and put aquatic plants here. So these 4 things would all be producers. And those are at the base of your pyramid. That's going to be, you have largest numbers of those in order to support the other organisms above that. To use a biology term, biomass. So the biomass of your producers has got to be much larger than the biomass of your next level. So the next level that we would get to would be the organisms that eat the producers. So we know that the beavers do, the elk do, depending on if it's a teeny tiny little lake trout, it might be eating little phytoplankton. So at that point, it would be considered a primary consumer. Same thing with the cutthroat trout. So that's why I have primary or secondary consumer there, because it's totally going to depend on, where they are in their life cycle. So then moving from primary consumer, then I would go to my secondary consumer. So a wolf eating the elk would be a secondary consumer. The bears would be a secondary consumer if it was eating the baby calves or the trout of either type. And if honestly, the hunters, the people, the humans would most likely at this point be a tertiary consumer, but depending on what they're eating, because humans, remember, are omnivores, where we eat plants too. So if they're having a salad with their elk, then, the salad part would be them being a primary consumer, but eating the elk would make them a secondary. So, so then we, again, we go up from there, secondary consumer. And you'll notice some terms that I added in. I added herbivore because like up here, they were mentioning those things. So I wanted to be as thorough as possible because remember, we're trying to learn something here. We're not just trying to do it in order to complete it and mark it off our checklist. You're actually trying to learn something. And doing this and doing it the way that I showed you, you're going to come away from this knowing it. Now, this was a time-consuming thing for you to sit and watch all of these videos. But this works for everything that you're doing, any kind of an article that you're having to read and then show that you have knowledge of what you read. So whether it's, something for social studies or for a government or econ class, or if it is something for English, if you're reading it just to check it off a list, you probably haven't learned anything. So actually going through and kind of analyzing it will help you understand it just that much more. Okay, so I went through and I labeled all of those. So you were supposed to add in the sun. So we know that the sun is responsible for photosynthesis. Well, it's the energy from the sun that drives that process. So you would add your sun in here, and then you would also add in decomposers. Now remember, the decomposers they have the ability to break down, all kinds of this stuff. So, a beaver just dies of old age, or a tree falls on it by accident and smashes it. So, there are probably going to be some detritivores that are going to move in and, eat some of that, some little varmints that, probably some crows or some vultures or something might come in and nitpick it, the carcass. But eventually it's going to get down to just a bunch of fur and bones and things. And then if a tree fell on it, then, you're going to have cute little roly-polies. You're going to have some millipedes. You're going to have other types of worms and things that are going to move in and help decompose that, fungi. And those are like the true decomposers. So you're going to be adding those things in. So the order of how we did this, we read the article, we went back and we highlighted organisms discussed. Then we wrote them down and connected the lines showing the relationships. We added the arrows to show the energy transfer, because that's bottom line why organisms consume other organisms. It seems sad. You see a cute little baby calf, elk, and a wolf chasing it down and eating it. But look at, what all the wolves do for this entire ecosystem. So, baby wolves are cute too. Their mothers need to nurse them, so they need the energy as well. The circle of life. Okay, enough of Lion King. Then we added the terms that were required based on the assignment. And the last thing that we have to do is we have to come up with a final copy on another sheet of paper. Something I want to point out before I switch to my next video is, where did I write that? Actually, I think it's down here. Labels. Print very neatly or type. Neatness counts. I can't even tell you. I had people that did it on like lined paper and then ripped it off, and it just, no straight lines, just a bunch of stuff drawn in there any which way. Read the whole assignment so that you know what's required of you. It should be neat. Anything that you're doing for a grade is worth making it look decent. We're not just trying to check a box that I did it. We're learning, and having enough respect for the work that you're doing to make it look decent is important too. Okay, so I'm going to shut up on this one, and then I'm going to go to the last video to show putting the final product together.